Emily Parker stepped onto the military range long before most of the other soldiers arrived. The early morning sun painted the horizon in pale oranges and muted blues, and the scent of dew-soaked grass mingled with the faint metallic tang lingering from spent bullets. She adjusted the strap of her rifle bag over her shoulder, its weight familiar and reassuring. Each step she took on the gravel path leading to the firing lanes resonated with purpose. To a casual observer, she appeared calm, almost delicate, but her mind buzzed with focus and anticipation. This wasn't her first time at a range like this. She had trained for years, and yet today felt different. Today she would be tested, not just for accuracy, but for perception. The range was beginning to fill. Soldiers in camouflage fatigues moved briskly, checking equipment and chatting casually. Some laughed loudly, exchanging stories of weekend adventures, missed shots, and minor mishaps on previous training exercises. Emily's presence barely registered to most of them at first. She was simply another soldier stepping into the familiar cacophony of the morning drill. But as soon as her boots hit the gravel near her designated lane, a few heads turned, curiosity piqued. The whispers began immediately, hushed but audible to anyone paying attention. "Is that a girl?" one soldier muttered to his friend, his voice a mix of amusement and disbelief. "She can't be good," the other replied, smirking. "Probably here to slow us down." Emily ignored them, her eyes locked on the target's downrange. She didn't flinch, didn't answer. She had learned long ago that the people who doubted her mocked her quietly or openly were often the least significant obstacle she faced. What mattered was her own skill, her training, and her ability to stay calm under pressure. She found a quiet lane near the far end, away from the cluster of soldiers who had gathered in groups, exchanging stories and laughter. Here, the air felt still, almost sacred, charged with potential energy. She unpacked her rifle, running her fingers over its smooth metal and worn wooden stock. There was a rhythm to the motion, a choreography she had memorized through hundreds of hours of practice. Every adjustment of the scope, every tightening of a screw, every click of the safety release was performed with deliberate care. Emily's world at that moment was distilled down to a single line of sight, a single barrel pointing toward the distant targets. Beyond the hum of conversation and laughter, she could hear the faint sound of birdsong and the whisper of wind through the trees lining the range. Nature itself seemed to pause in anticipation, as if aware that something precise, something extraordinary, was about to unfold. Her breathing was measured, slow and steady. Inhale, exhale, inhale. She had trained her body to respond instinctively, to stay calm even when chaos surrounded her. She ran through the mental checklist she had followed for years. Stance, grip, alignment, trigger control, breathing, focus. The checklist was like a mantra, a meditation in motion. It allowed her to tune out the distractions, the whispers, the jokes, the doubt, and enter the flow state she had worked so hard to achieve. A few soldiers had started to gather near her lane, curiosity drawing them closer despite their skepticism. They leaned against the barricades, watching with a mix of amusement and mild disdain. "Watch this," one whispered under his breath, clearly trying to set the tone for a joke that would follow. Emily, unaware or uncaring of their presence, lifted her rifle and settled into position. Her hands were steady. Her gaze was unwavering. The first shot rang out, sharp and clean, echoing across the range. Emily's bullet struck the center of the target with a satisfying thud. A few heads turned, eyebrows raising. A second shot followed, equally precise. Murmurs rippled through the small crowd of onlookers. "Lucky?" one muttered. "Yeah, must be beginner's luck," said another, clearly attempting to mask his growing unease. But as the third and fourth rounds hit dead center, the murmurs shifted toward astonishment. Emily didn't smile, didn't react. She simply continued, each shot deliberate, confident, unwavering. She could feel the tension shift, subtle but undeniable. The laughter of the early arrivals had faded, replaced by a curious silence. Emily's skill was no longer a joke, it was becoming a statement. But she knew better than to let this moment turn into arrogance. True mastery, she had learned, was quiet, humble, and relentless. She focused on the sights, the target, the recoil, and the rhythm of each shot. Every strike on the bullseye was a reminder of the countless hours of practice. The early mornings, the meticulous repetition, the lessons learned from every mistake. As she loaded the next magazine, she caught a glimpse of a figure at the far end of the range. A man, older than most of the soldiers present, stood apart from the group, his posture upright, his eyes sharp and observant. He wore the insignia of a SEAL commander. Emily barely acknowledged him. She had learned to treat observation as a constant, not a distraction. But she felt the subtle weight of his gaze, and though it didn't disturb her, it added a quiet thrill, a silent challenge, a test that she would rise to meet. Her mind briefly wandered to the tattoo on her forearm, partially covered by her sleeve. It was a mark of her past, a symbol few understood. Most of the soldiers here wouldn't recognize its significance. They didn't know her history, her training, the trials she had endured to reach this point. They laughed at her now, unaware that every ounce of skill she displayed had been forged under conditions far more extreme than this range could ever offer. That tattoo was a reminder of her resilience, of the elite experiences that had shaped her, and the quiet power she carried. Emily positioned herself again, the rifle steady in her hands, and exhaled slowly. The next shot was perfect. Another bullseye. The third, the fourth, the fifth, each confirming what she already knew. Talent, skill, and discipline were far more telling than words or appearances. The group of onlookers who had doubted her was now silent, some shifting uncomfortably, others stealing glances at one another, unable to reconcile their assumptions with reality. For Emily, this moment was not about proving them wrong. It was about proving herself right, reinforcing the countless hours, the sweat, the dedication, and the quiet determination that had brought her here. She didn't seek applause. She didn't seek validation. The rifle, the target, and her own mind were enough. But the change in the air, the subtle acknowledgement that she was not to be underestimated, was satisfying in a way she rarely admitted. As the morning sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the range, Emily continued her practice. Each movement, each shot, was deliberate, almost meditative. She could feel the subtle shift around her, the respect that was beginning to form, not spoken yet, but present. The soldiers who had laughed were still present, still watching, but now with caution, their amusement tempered by astonishment. Emily's quiet confidence, her unwavering focus, and her undeniable skill were impossible to ignore. By the time she finally lowered her rifle and began packing her gear, Emily had made her mark, not just on the targets, but on the perception of everyone who had watched. They would remember her not for the initial laughter, but for the precision, calm, and skill that silenced it. The quiet arrival had turned into a statement, subtle yet powerful. And as Emily turned to leave the range, her mind already prepared for the next challenge. She felt the unmistakable hum of anticipation. Something told her this day would be remembered, not for what others had assumed, but for what she had quietly, undeniably accomplished. The soldiers who had gathered near Emily's lane were beginning to fidget. Their confidence, so loud and brash just moments ago, now teetered on the edge of uncertainty. Each of her shots punctuated the air with a quiet authority that none of them had anticipated. Murmurs rippled through the small crowd, a mixture of surprise and begrudging acknowledgement. Yet their skepticism lingered, stubborn and unyielding. One of the soldiers, a tall man with a buzz cut and an easy smile, leaned toward his friend and whispered under his breath, "You see that? She's hitting every single shot. Come on, that can't be normal." His friend shook his head, though. The corners of his mouth betrayed a hint of doubt. "Yeah, maybe. But she's a girl. Maybe it's just beginner's luck. Let's see what happens next." Emily heard none of this. She didn't need to. Years of training had taught her to shut out distractions, to focus only on what mattered. She set the rifle on her shoulder, her hands steady, her eyes narrowing slightly as she took aim at the next target. The air was cool, crisp, and faintly scented with gunpowder from earlier rounds. She exhaled, slow and steady, feeling the rhythm of her heartbeat synchronize with her breathing. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. The first shot from this set of rounds hit the exact center of the target with a clean thud. The second followed, equally precise. A few soldiers exchanged glances, their eyes widening ever so slightly. The whispers turned into subdued conversations. "How is she doing that?" someone murmured, unable to hide the rising astonishment. Emily adjusted her stance slightly, testing the distance between her feet and the angle of her shoulders. Her movements were deliberate, almost elegant, yet purposeful in a way only a skilled marksman could achieve. Another shot rang out, and another target fell dead center. The subtle recoil of the rifle was absorbed effortlessly by her body, her muscles responding instinctively, almost instinctively. Each hit was proof of countless hours of practice, of the precision and discipline she had honed over years in training. Environments far harsher than this one. A few soldiers began to whisper nervously, trying to rationalize her skill. "Maybe she trained at some private academy," one said. "Yeah, maybe," replied another, though the certainty in his voice was faltering. Emily didn't need them to believe. She had long ago learned that skill, when genuine, would speak louder than the noise of doubt. But there was one man at the far end of the range who had already noticed more than just her accuracy. The SEAL commander, an imposing figure with years of battlefield experience etched into the lines of his face, observed her with keen, calculating eyes. He had seen many marksmen in his time, both male and female, some highly skilled, others mediocre. But there was something in Emily's posture, her breathing, her control, that caught his attention immediately. Her movements weren't just practiced, they were intuitive, natural, the kind of precision that could only come from experience that few civilians, and even fewer military personnel, ever attained. He didn't yet know the full story, but something told him she was exceptional. Something told him that beneath her quiet exterior lay years of training, discipline, and resilience that had forged her into a shooter worthy of attention. And then he noticed a flicker of ink on her forearm, partially obscured by her sleeve. The glimpse was enough to pique his curiosity, a tattoo that, to most, would seem insignificant. To him, it was a signal. Back on the range, Emily continued her methodical shooting. Every time she pulled the trigger, a small, almost imperceptible pause filled the air. She wasn't rushing, wasn't showing off. She was executing every movement with deliberate care, each shot a testament to her inner focus and physical mastery. The targets were falling as though guided by an invisible hand, and the soldiers who had doubted her were beginning to sense that this was no accident. "Look at her form," muttered one of the taller soldiers, this time openly, unable to disguise his fascination. "Her breathing, it's perfect. That's not beginner's luck." The friend he whispered to nodded slowly, swallowing the last remnants of skepticism. "Yeah, it's like she's in another league. I don't get it." Emily's lips pressed into a thin line as she continued to focus, undistracted by the growing attention. She had learned long ago that external validation was fleeting. Skill was real only when proven under pressure, when applied consistently, and without the crutch of praise. Her mind ran through every motion, every calculation, as if the rifle and the target were extensions of her own body. The wind, the light, the subtle unevenness of the ground beneath her boots, everything mattered. She fired another set of rounds, each hitting closer and closer to perfection. The whispers of "lucky" had disappeared entirely, replaced by a hesitant awe. Even the loudest skeptics found themselves holding their breath, their eyes glued to the targets as if witnessing something impossible. Emily's skill was undeniable, and her quiet confidence amplified it. She didn't gloat. She didn't need to. Her results were eloquent enough. A sense of tension began to grow among the onlookers. Some shifted uneasily, attempting to disguise their growing respect with forced smiles or casual gestures. Others stared openly, eyes wide, silently acknowledging the reality they had been forced to confront. Emily had disrupted their assumptions, shattered their biases, and done it without a word. She hadn't sought confrontation or validation. She had simply acted with skill and discipline. And now, the silence was hers. Meanwhile, the SEAL commander continued to watch. He noticed the precision, of course, but more than that, he noticed her control under observation. Many shooters falter when they know they are being watched, their nerves betraying them. Emily's performance, however, was flawless. Her focus didn't waver, not even for a second. The tattoo on her forearm, briefly glimpsed again as she adjusted her sleeve, sent a jolt through his mind. It was unmistakable, the mark of someone who had endured rigorous elite training, a mark he had only seen on a handful of soldiers in his entire career. The murmurs among the soldiers grew quieter, some leaning in closer, trying to understand the mystery before them. Emily could feel their eyes on her, but she didn't break focus. Years of experience had taught her the value of controlled calm, of deliberate motion, and of allowing her actions to speak louder than words. She was more than a soldier. She was a demonstration of precision, discipline, and quiet resilience. Finally, she finished her set, lowering her rifle and taking a slow breath. The targets were lined perfectly, each shot a testament to her skill. The silence among the onlookers was thick, charged with unspoken recognition. They had laughed at her arrival, dismissed her presence, and underestimated her entirely. Now, they could only stare, uncertain how to react, caught between astonishment and respect. Emily packed her rifle with methodical care, her movements still calm and deliberate. The murmurs began to shift into cautious conversations among the monks. Soldiers, though none dared approach directly. They had learned an early lesson. Appearances could be deceiving, and skill often lay beneath the surface. The SEAL commander, still observing from the distance, stepped closer. He didn't interrupt the growing whispers. He didn't need to. He had seen enough. Emily's performance had confirmed what he already suspected. She was not ordinary. The tattoo on her arm, the controls she displayed, the unshakable focus, all pointed to a depth of experience few possessed. He knew that once he made contact, the full story would unfold. Emily adjusted her sleeve, hiding the tattoo again, unaware of the attention it had drawn. She didn't care. She had proven herself in the way that mattered most, through skill, precision, and quiet perseverance. Yet somewhere deep down, she sensed that this day was only the beginning. Something about the commander's watchful gaze hinted at challenges and recognition yet to come, and a thrill ran through her that had little to do with approval, and everything to do with the mastery she had worked so hard to achieve. As the morning sun climbed higher, the range came alive with other drills and exercises. Emily remained near her lane, gathering her gear and preparing to step away when the SEAL commander finally approached. The soldiers who had doubted her now observed silently, waiting to see what would happen next. The dynamic had shifted completely. The laughter and mockery had faded, replaced with a respect that hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. Emily had turned skepticism into awe, simply by being herself, simply by allowing her skill and discipline to shine without compromise. In that moment, Emily Parker understood something essential. The quiet ones often carry the greatest force, and assumptions made without knowledge are easily shattered. The soldiers who had laughed at her shots had learned a lesson in humility, though few of them would admit it aloud. And the SEAL commander, standing nearby, recognized the potential, the depth, and the mastery that lay beneath the unassuming exterior. The first stage of Emily's journey on this range had concluded, but the real story, the one that would leave a lasting impression on everyone present, was just beginning. Emily Parker exhaled slowly, the crisp morning air filling her lungs, grounding her in a state of absolute focus. Around her, the sound of rifles firing echoed across the range, each sharp report punctuating the rhythmic hum of military life. Yet for Emily, everything else faded to a distant blur. The chatter, the laughter, the occasional clang of a dropped shell, casing all of it, receded behind a singular point of concentration, the target before her. Each bullseye demanded precision. Each shot required a calm hand, steady heart, an unwavering mind. Her stance was textbook perfect, but not rigid. Every motion flowed naturally, as if her body had memorized a choreography written long before she had arrived. Feet planted firmly, shoulders squared, rifle cradled securely, and cheek resting lightly against the stock. Her dominant eye aligned, with the sight narrowing just enough to filter the world into a single focused frame. The subtle weight of the rifle in her hands was no burden. It was an extension of herself, an instrument through which her skill and training manifested. Around her, the soldiers who had doubted her continued to observe, some leaning forward in silent curiosity, others attempting to mask their astonishment with casual gestures. "She's really good," one muttered, almost inaudibly, as if speaking the truth aloud would make it vanish. His friend, arms crossed, nodded slowly, mouth tight. "Yeah, no kidding. That last round. Dead center again." Emily loaded the next magazine with practiced efficiency, the soft metallic clicks echoing in harmony with her steady breath. Each movement, though deliberate, was subtle. She didn't rush. She had learned long ago that patience was as essential as skill, and that precision demanded a marriage of timing and restraint. Every shot she fired was a conversation between her mind, her body, and the rifle itself, a delicate negotiation of physics, intuition, and experience. The first bullet struck the target with a resonant thud, perfectly centered. The second, just as exact. And the third followed, striking with the silent authority of inevitability. Each hit elicited small gasps from the soldiers nearby, whispers of astonishment barely contained. How is she doing that?" one asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. Another shook his head slowly, as if trying to reconcile his preconceived notions with the reality unfolding before him. "It's like she knows where the bullets will go before she even fires." Emily's lips pressed into a thin line, expression serene, betraying nothing of the satisfaction or thrill she felt. She wasn't performing for anyone. She didn't need approval or recognition. Her satisfaction came from executing flawlessly, from proving to herself, yet again, that skill was earned, honed, and disciplined. Every shot was a small victory, a reinforcement of the countless hours she had spent practicing, failing, adjusting, and mastering. At the far end of the range, the SEAL commander's gaze remained fixed on her. Years of observing elite marksmen had taught him that true skill was more than hitting targets. It was the combination of focus, composure, and instinct. Emily displayed all three in abundance. He noticed how she adjusted minutely to compensate for the wind, how her breathing synchronized perfectly with each pull of the trigger, and how the recoil never broke her stance. Her performance was more than impressive. It was exceptional. The other soldiers, initially skeptical and even mocking, now looked at her with a mix of awe and silent apology. Some had begun to understand that she was no ordinary trainee. Their assumptions, born of bias and quick judgment, had crumbled under the evidence of her skill. And yet none of them dared approach her, unsure how to bridge the gap between doubt and respect. Emily, for her part, remained focused on the task, aware of their attention, but unbothered by it. She was in her element, and the outside world might as well have ceased to exist. Another round of shots flew from her rifle, each one punctuating the air with precise accuracy. Emily's movements were fluid, almost artistic, a seamless blend of discipline and intuition. Each bullet hit its mark with a consistency that left no room for argument, no margin for doubt. The soldiers watching shifted uncomfortably, some whispering to one another, attempting to rationalize what they were seeing. "It's almost unnatural," one admitted quietly. "She's not just good, she's perfect." Emily allowed herself a brief moment to inhale, centering her focus again. She was aware of the subtle glances from the SEAL commander, the quiet acknowledgement of skill that carried far more weight than any praise from peers. She adjusted her grip slightly, recalibrated her stance, and fired again. Bullseye. And again. And again. Each hit a testament to her years of relentless training, her meticulous attention to detail, and her innate talent. In the midst of her performance, Emily felt a flicker of awareness about the soldiers observing her. Some were no longer sneering. Some were no longer whispering about luck. Their astonishment was palpable, a quiet recognition that she was in a league far above their expectations. She had shifted the dynamic entirely. The mockery had vanished, replaced with a tension-filled silence, broken only by the rhythmic reports of her rifle and the occasional gasp of disbelief. Even with the focus on her skill, Emily couldn't help but notice the weight of expectation in the air. Her quiet determination was forcing those around her to reconsider long-held assumptions about ability, gender, and perception. It was a subtle power, one that she wielded without arrogance. She let the evidence of her actions speak for itself, each shot a word in a sentence that told the story of her experience, her training, and her resilience. The SEAL commander, observing quietly, was particularly attuned to the details. He noticed the faint hint of a tattoo on her forearm, partially concealed by her sleeve. Though most would have dismissed it as a personal insignia, he recognized the shape immediately. It was a symbol of elite training, of experience few had survived, and even fewer had mastered. The sight of it, combined with her flawless shooting, sent a jolt through him. He realized that Emily's story was far deeper than the soldiers around her could comprehend. As the minutes passed, Emily's precision never wavered. Each shot reinforced her dominance on the range, not through force or showmanship, but through unwavering competence. Her calm, methodical approach left the observing soldiers speechless, and the energy of the environment shifted palpably. Where there had been noise, skepticism, and laughter, now there was quiet respect tinged with awe. They were witnesses to a demonstration of mastery, and even without words, they understood the magnitude of what they were seeing. Emily paused briefly to wipe sweat from her brow, rolling up her sleeve slightly as she did. The tattoo, a mark of her past elite unit, caught the faint sunlight, and the SEAL commander's eyes narrowed. He had seen that insignia before, but only on a select few. It carried weight, history, and unspoken authority. Around her, the soldiers continued to stare, unaware of its meaning, but the commander knew. He had recognized her skill and her background, even without a word exchanged. She resumed her stance, firing another round. The shot struck perfectly, as it always had. Each hit was deliberate, calculated, a result of years of experience refined to perfection. Emily's focus remained absolute, a testament to her discipline and her ability to perform under observation. The soldiers around her were no longer daring to breathe too loudly. They had learned the lesson without a single reprimand, without a single word from her. Respect, they realized, had been earned quietly, through action alone. Emily's mind, while calm, remained engaged. She thought about each movement, each micro-adjustment, each subtle shift in stance and grip. The rifle was an extension of herself, a tool through which her skill manifested in the tangible reality of bullseyes and precision. She had spent years honing this connection, and now it was on full display, undeniable and complete. Finally, as she lowered her rifle and gathered her thoughts, Emily allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The targets were lined perfectly, a testament to her skill and unwavering focus. The silence that had enveloped the range was thick with realization. The soldiers who had doubted her presence, who had laughed and whispered, now stared with silent acknowledgement. The SEAL commander remained at the far end, watching closely, a subtle smile playing on his lips. Emily Parker had proven herself, not through words, not through bravado, but through flawless execution. Every shot, every movement, every quiet breath told the story of her expertise. She had taken the skepticism of others and turned it into commanding respect through competence and discipline. And though she packed her rifle and prepared to leave the lane, the story of her mastery, the anticipation of the tattoo's significance, and the recognition from the SEAL commander hinted that her journey on this range was only beginning. Emily Parker had finished her latest round of shots, but the rhythm of the range didn't quiet around her. The echoes of rifles, the distant shouts of instructors, and the occasional clatter of spent shells blended into a background hum she barely noticed. Her focus, however, had begun to shift subtly. She felt a presence, not just the nearby soldiers still whispering, astonished by her skill, but a deeper, more intense scrutiny. From the far end of the range, someone was watching her with a precision that matched her own. The SEAL commander, a man whose reputation preceded him, stood with arms crossed, eyes sharp, and posture rigid. Years of experience on the battlefield had trained him to notice the smallest details, the slight twitch of a wrist, the shift of weight in a stance, or the faintest hesitation before a trigger squeeze. Emily's skill had immediately caught his attention, but it was more than her accuracy. It was her composure under observation, her control in the face of doubt, and the subtle confidence that radiated from every deliberate movement. Most soldiers assumed he was simply observing routine practice, but to him, this was anything but routine. He had seen hundreds of trainees attempt to impress under pressure, but Emily's performance was different. She didn't seek to impress. She sought precision, consistency, mastery. It was the quiet mark of someone who had trained in environments far harsher than a morning range, someone who had survived challenges designed to break lesser soldiers. Her skill was apparent, undeniable, but what truly intrigued him was the hint of a story beneath the surface. As she repositioned her stance for another round, the commander caught sight of a fleeting flash of ink on her forearm, partially hidden by the sleeve of her uniform. His eyes narrowed slightly. The tattoo was subtle, yet distinctive, a stylized insignia that he recognized immediately. Not many soldiers bore it. Fewer still had survived the rigorous training and trials it represented. It was a mark of elite experience, of someone who had endured conditions most could not imagine and emerged not just alive, but capable of extraordinary skill. Emily continued her firing, each bullet striking the center of the target as if guided by instinct itself. Around her, the whispers of her peers had mostly ceased, replaced by an almost reverent silence. They still did not understand the depth of her experience, nor the meaning of the tattoo they hadn't noticed. To them, she was simply a shockingly good marksman. But the commander saw beyond the surface. He saw the proof of elite conditioning, of years of training, of discipline forged in extreme circumstances. A soft breeze moved across the range, and Emily adjusted slightly, the muscles in her arms flexing subtly to compensate. The commander's gaze followed her every micro-movement. He noted the precision of her grip, the exact alignment of her rifle with her eye, the fluidity of her stance, and the impeccable timing of her trigger squeeze. It was rare to see someone operate at this level without hesitation, yet she did. So effortlessly. The way she moved suggested not only experience, but instinctual mastery. She was not merely executing training drills. She was in complete control of herself and her environment. The soldiers nearby, oblivious to the commander's recognition, continued to whisper, though now with a tone of awe rather than mockery. She's unreal," one murmured. "Yeah, she's hitting every shot like it's nothing," another replied, shifting his weight nervously. A few of the bolder soldiers dared to meet her eyes briefly, only to look away quickly, caught in the uncomfortable realization that they had misjudged her entirely. Emily, as always, remained composed, letting her actions speak louder than any words or glances could. The commander, intrigued by the fleeting glimpse of her tattoo, took a subtle step forward. He had trained countless soldiers, but only a select. Few bore this mark, and it carried an unspoken weight of history and achievement. He knew that its appearance on Emily's arm was a signal, an indication that she was not merely a skilled marksman, but someone who had already faced and overcome challenges that would have crushed most others. He made a mental note to approach her once she had completed her session. But for now, he remained silent, observing, letting her skill continue to unfold uninterrupted. Emily adjusted her rifle again, settling into a comfortable stance that allowed for precision without rigidity. She felt the subtle shift in the air, the quiet attention of those around her, and the faint awareness of someone watching her closely. From afar, while she could not see the commander clearly, she sensed his presence in a way that heightened her focus rather than disrupted it. Years of training had taught her to detect subtle changes in her environment, to remain aware without distraction, and to use observation as a tool rather than a hindrance. The targets before her were now a perfect test of her abilities. Each one demanded a unique calculation: distance, angle, wind, and subtle variations in elevation. Emily's movements were fluid, almost instinctual, as she accounted for each factor. She fired again, and the bullets struck true, each one a testament to her meticulous training and natural precision. Around her, the murmurs of astonishment grew, though no one dared speak too loudly. They were witnessing a level of skill that few could comprehend, and the energy in the air was charged with unspoken respect. The commander's eyes, however, were focused not only on her skill, but on the story it told. He had recognized the tattoo for what it represented: endurance, resilience, and elite training. Combined with her flawless execution on the range, it painted a picture of a soldier who had already achieved more than most could imagine. His curiosity deepened, and he knew that once the session ended, he needed to speak with her. The recognition of skill was one thing. Understanding the history behind it was another. Emily's presence commanded both. Meanwhile, Emily's focus remained unbroken. She had become attuned to the rhythm of the range, the subtle shifts in gnawing, wind, the varying distances of the targets, and the weight of the rifle in her hands. Every shot she fired reinforced her confidence and her mastery. Her peers continued to observe, some in awe, others in quiet disbelief, yet none fully comprehended the depth of her experience. Emily had always preferred it this way. She valued skill over spectacle, results over praise. The quiet mastery she displayed now was the culmination of years of relentless dedication. As the session continued, Emily felt a subtle shift in her surroundings. The soldiers' whispers had diminished almost entirely, replaced by a silent, almost reverent attention. Even those who had previously mocked her were now constrained by the weight of reality. They had witnessed her skill firsthand and understood, at least on some level, that she was exceptional. Emily's presence had transformed the energy of the range, shifting it from casual confidence to cautious admiration. The SEAL commander, maintaining his distance, continued to observe every detail. He noted the precise alignment of her rifle, the fluidity of her stance, the controlled timing of her breathing, and the unwavering accuracy of her shots. All of it combined to form a picture of extraordinary competence. But the tattoo remained the key. It told a story that most would miss entirely, yet he recognized immediately. Emily Parker had already achieved something remarkable, something that set her apart from nearly everyone around her. Finally, as Emily lowered her rifle to take a brief pause, the commander took a decisive step forward. He had observed enough to know that her skill was real, and the tattoo had confirmed the depth of her experience. He approached with deliberate confidence, a silent acknowledgement of both her mastery and the hidden story she carried. Around her, the soldiers continued to watch, though now with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension, sensing that something significant was about to unfold. Emily wiped a light sheen of sweat from her brow, rolling her sleeve slightly as she did so, unaware that the tattoo had already drawn the commander's full attention. The insignia, faint yet distinct, symbolized more than past achievements. It represented discipline, resilience, and the ability to rise above challenges that would have defeated others. To the commander, it was a signal. Emily Parker was more than a skilled marksman. She was someone forged by experience, tested by circumstance, and ready for challenges far beyond this morning's range. As she prepared for her next series of shots, Emily felt a subtle shift in tension. It was the quiet power of observation, of being seen by someone who understood the meaning of skill, experience, and resilience. For a brief moment, she allowed herself to feel the weight of recognition, not for ego, but as validation of years of dedication. The SEAL commander's presence had added a new layer to her performance, an unspoken challenge that demanded her absolute best. And she welcomed it, as she always did. The range was alive with the sound of rifles, the murmurs of soldiers, and the subtle awareness of something extraordinary unfolding. Emily Parker, calm, precise, and unwavering, had captured the attention of everyone present. But most importantly, she had captured the attention of someone who could truly recognize her mastery, the SEAL commander. And while the soldiers around her remained largely unaware of the deeper significance, the story behind her tattoo and her unmatched skill was beginning to unfold, silently yet powerfully, signaling that the most remarkable chapters of this day were still to come. Emily Parker lowered her rifle and wiped a thin sheen of sweat from her brow, her breathing still steady, her focus unbroken. The range had grown quiet around her, the once loud chatter of soldiers reduced to murmurs and hushed whispers. Her peers, who had arrived with skepticism and laughter, now watched her with a mixture of awe and hesitation, unable to reconcile the girl they had underestimated with the marksman they had just witnessed. Emily, as always, remained unaware of the full extent of their attention. Her mind was already preparing for the next round, already calculating wind, distance, and stance adjustments. As she reached up to adjust her sleeve, her forearm brushed against the fabric of her uniform, and the sleeve rolled back, revealing the tattoo in full. The insignia was elegant, yet unmistakable, a stylized emblem of her previous elite unit, a mark that carried immense significance, and a history few could comprehend. It wasn't flashy or attention-seeking, but to those who recognized it, it screamed experience, resilience, and exceptional skill. The design, etched in intricate detail, symbolized endurance, discipline, and mastery of the most grueling and exclusive training programs the military had to offer. The SEAL commander, who had been observing from a distance with an intensity few could endure, froze momentarily. Recognition flared in his eyes. This was no ordinary insignia. Very few soldiers bore this mark, and even fewer had survived the conditions required to earn it. To see it now, on the forearm of a young woman who had already demonstrated flawless precision on the range, was a revelation. His mind raced as he silently catalogued the implications. Emily Parker was someone far beyond ordinary expectation, someone who had been tested in ways that most would never experience. Around the range, the soldiers continued their observations, but their focus had shifted. Some noticed the tattoo, but didn't understand its significance. Others were too awestruck by her skill to pay attention to anything else. Emily, however, remained calm, methodically preparing her next set of shots. She was aware of the eyes upon her, the subtle change in energy around the range, but her training allowed her to compartmentalize distraction. Years of rigorous preparation had taught her to focus entirely on execution, letting skill speak louder than words or symbols. The commander moved closer, his boots crunching softly against the gravel path. Each step was measured, deliberate, signaling authority and experience. He knew he needed to assess her, not only on her visible skill, but on the story behind the tattoo, what it represented, the history it carried, and the potential it suggested. Emily had demonstrated excellence under observation. Now, he sought to understand the full measure of her capabilities. Emily lined up her next series of shots, her mind running through every micro-adjustment, the slight angle of the rifle, the pull of the trigger, her breath, the wind, and the subtle sway of the range's terrain. She fired again, hitting each target with precision that was now almost disorienting in its consistency. As soldiers watching were silent, some leaning closer to catch every detail, others standing frozen in disbelief. It wasn't just that she could shoot. It was how she moved, how she calculated, how effortlessly she translated knowledge and instinct into action. Finally, the commander spoke, his voice calm but authoritative, cutting through the soft echoes of rifles and whispers. "Emily Parker," he said, stepping fully into view. Her head lifted smoothly, eyes meeting his with quiet confidence. "I see your tattoo," he continued, gesturing subtly to her forearm. "That insignia. Not many carry it. Fewer survive the conditions it represents. Tell me, how did you earn it?" The soldiers nearby exchanged stunned glances. Their whispers had been replaced by a tense curiosity. They had recognized the significance in the commander's tone. Before they even understood the mark itself, Emily's lips curved slightly into a modest smile. She wasn't one for grandiose storytelling or boasting. Yet she understood the importance of context, of demonstrating that skill and history were inseparable. "I earned it through years of rigorous training," she replied, her voice steady and clear. "Endless drills, physical and mental endurance. Tests and missions that tested the limits of human capability. Few made it through, and even fewer retained the precision and discipline required to perform under extreme conditions." She paused, allowing her words to sink in. "It's not a symbol of pride, but of resilience and preparation. Every shot I take is a reflection of that training." The commander's eyes narrowed, studying her closely. He noted the subtle confidence in her posture, the controlled calm in her voice, and the clarity of her gaze. This was someone who had faced unimaginable pressure and emerged not only capable, but exceptional. "Impressive," he said finally, the single word carrying more weight than any lengthier praise could. "I've seen few soldiers operate at this level. Your performance today confirms it." Around them, the range felt charged with tension. The soldiers who had mocked Emily earlier now watched in near silence, their previous assumptions completely overturned. Some whispered quietly to one another, trying to piece together the story behind the tattoo they now recognized as a mark of elite achievement. Others merely stood frozen, unsure how to react to a display of skill and experience so far beyond their expectations. Emily's quiet mastery had not only commanded respect, it had reshaped perceptions entirely. The commander gestured for her to lower her rifle and step aside. Emily complied, her movements deliberate, graceful, and precise. "Tell me," he began, "what kind of training did this entail? I need to understand the context behind your skill." His tone was firm but respectful, acknowledging that her accomplishments were earned through extreme dedication. Emily took a breath, recalling the countless hours, the endless drills, and the trials she had endured. It was a combination of mental endurance, precision shooting, tactical exercises, and high-stress simulations, she explained. Physical training was grueling, but the psychological challenges were even more demanding. The insignia represents completion of a program designed to push soldiers beyond what they think is possible, beyond fear, beyond fatigue, and beyond doubt. The commander nodded slowly, absorbing each word. He understood immediately that Emily's presence on this range was not a matter of luck or novelty. It was the culmination of elite training and hard-earned mastery. He could see it not only in her performance, but in the calm assurance with which she moved and spoke. To him, Emily Parker was no ordinary trainee. She was a rare talent, someone whose skill, discipline, and history commanded attention and respect. Around them, the soldiers' whispers grew louder, though carefully measured. They were trying to grasp the depth of what they had just witnessed. One of the taller soldiers muttered under his breath, barely audible, I had no idea." Another simply shook his head slowly, the realization dawning that they had misjudged her entirely. The commander's recognition and Emily's explanation had shifted the dynamic completely. The laughter and doubt of the morning had been replaced by silent acknowledgement and admiration. Emily's attention, however, remained primarily on the targets and the rifle in her hands. She didn't seek validation, and she didn't seek to dominate conversation. Her satisfaction came from precision, mastery, and the quiet knowledge that her skill spoke louder than words. Yet the acknowledgement from the SEAL commander, coupled with the revelation of her tattoo's significance, added a layer of recognition she did not often receive, but had silently earned through relentless effort. "Your focus is remarkable," the commander continued, his voice calm yet firm. "Most shooters falter under observation. Not you. You've demonstrated not just skill, but the mental resilience that separates the exceptional from the competent. That insignia is no accident. It represents years of refinement and discipline. And today, your shots prove it." Emily inclined her head slightly, acknowledging the compliment with quiet grace. She did not inflate it into ego. She allowed the words to pass as acknowledgement of what she already knew. Skill, once earned and refined, is undeniable. And on this range, she had demonstrated mastery, focus, and poise beyond what most soldiers could imagine. The soldiers surrounding her were now fully silent, some still staring at the tattoo, others at her rifle, and many at the commander, attempting to understand the meaning of both. Emily's presence had shifted the entire atmosphere of the range, transforming skepticism into awe, doubt into respect, and casual observation into careful attention. She had become not just a marksman on a target range, but a symbol of resilience, preparation, and quiet dominance qualities few could recognize fully, but all could respect. As she prepared for her next series of shots, the commander stepped slightly closer, his eyes never leaving hers. "Let's see how you handle a more challenging set," he said, his tone hinting at both approval and a subtle challenge. Emily adjusted her stance, her movements precise, deliberate, and confident. The story of her tattoo, her skill, and her mastery was now fully intertwined with the unfolding session, and the soldiers around her waited with bated breath, eager to witness the next chapter of an extraordinary story. Emily Parker had revealed not only the insignia on her arm, but the hidden history and mastery it represented. The silence that followed was thick with acknowledgement. Respect had replaced doubt, admiration had replaced laughter, and the SEAL. Commander had confirmed what only a few had suspected. She was extraordinary. And as Emily readied herself for the next challenge, she knew the day's most remarkable moments were only beginning. Emily Parker's forearm now fully revealed, the intricate tattoo catching the morning light, the SEAL commander took a measured step closer. Around the range, the soldiers who had earlier doubted her still watched. A mix of awe and lingering disbelief etched into their faces. No one spoke. Even the instructors paused briefly, sensing the shift in energy. Emily remained calm, her eyes focused on the targets ahead, her mind already calculating her next series of shots. The commander's presence, far from unsettling her, added a new edge of challenge, one that Emily welcomed. "Emily," he began, his voice steady yet commanding, "I want to see how your skill holds under more complex conditions. Not just precision on a static target, but adaptability, speed, and accuracy under stress. Are you ready?" Emily didn't hesitate. "Yes, sir," she replied, her tone clear, calm, and confident. She had trained for scenarios far more intense than this, situations where timing, focus, and adaptability were the difference between success and failure. She knew that the commander's request was not casual. It was a test, and she thrived on tests. The commander gestured toward a series of new targets, positioned at varying distances and angles across the range. Some were partially obscured by obstacles, others required rapid adjustments for wind and elevation. "You'll engage these targets in sequence," he explained. "Each one presents a unique challenge. I want to see how you handle precision, timing, and movement. Show me your adaptability." Emily nodded, mentally mapping the layout. She observed each target carefully, noting the distance, the angle, and the slight variations in elevation. Her eyes briefly flicked to the onlookers, her skeptical peers, now hushed and attentive, and the commander, whose focused gaze challenged her to exceed her limits. She took a slow breath, inhaling the crisp morning air, and allowed her body to settle into the familiar rhythm of control and focus. The first target appeared, positioned behind a small barricade. Emily stepped forward, calculated her stance, and fired. The bullet struck with impeccable precision, cleanly hitting the bullseye. The next target required a slight lateral adjustment and an immediate shift in elevation. She pivoted smoothly, her body fluid, her breathing steady, and the shot rang. True, bullseye. Around her, the murmurs of soldiers grew quieter. Some exchanged astonished glances, realizing that her skill extended beyond static precision. This was dynamic performance under pressure, a demonstration of mastery few could hope to achieve. They began to whisper, almost reverently, "She's incredible, and I didn't think anyone could do that." The commander's eyes remained fixed on her, analyzing every detail. He noted the subtle adjustments in her grip, the way she compensated for obstacles, the seamless integration of speed and precision. "Notice how her stance remains stable, yet flexible," he murmured to himself, almost unconsciously. "Her transitions are fluid, each shot deliberate. She's not just skilled, she's instinctive under pressure." The next set of targets introduced an additional challenge: speed. Emily had to engage multiple targets in quick succession, each with varying degrees of cover and distance. She adjusted her breathing slightly, timing each exhale to coincide with the release of the trigger. Her fingers moved with practiced efficiency, and her body shifted with calculated agility. Each shot found its mark, the bullet striking exactly where intended. The soldiers around her were now completely silent, captivated by the display. Some had leaned forward, unable to tear their eyes away from the precision and speed she exhibited. The earlier laughter and mockery had completely vanished, replaced by a profound respect. They were witnessing not just a marksman, but a master of skill, resilience, and discipline. Emily continued through the sequence, her focus absolute. Each target demanded a unique combination of skill, calculation, timing, and instinct. Some required rapid adjustment, others careful precision. Yet she navigated the challenges effortlessly, her body and mind working in harmony. Her breathing remained steady, her stance perfectly balanced, and her shots unerringly accurate. The commander finally spoke again, his voice cutting through the silence. "Emily, your precision is exceptional. But tell me, how do you maintain composure under observation? Most shooters falter when they know they're being watched. Not you. How do you do it?" Emily paused briefly, lowering her rifle just slightly to address him. "Discipline, sir," she said calmly. "It's training. Focus. Preparation. I don't think about their judgment or their expectations. I focus on the target, my stance, my timing, and my execution. Everything else fades." The commander nodded, clearly impressed. "That level of focus is rare," he replied. "Most falter under pressure, even experienced soldiers. But you operate with an almost instinctual calm. Your tattoo isn't just a mark. It's proof of the resilience and training that created this capability." Emily's lips curved in a modest, barely perceptible smile. She wasn't one for boasting. Her satisfaction came from results, from the execution of skill, and from knowing that her training had been validated by action. Yet there was a quiet thrill in seeing the commander recognize the depth of her capability, the acknowledgement, from someone who understood the significance of both her tattoo and her skill. The final challenge of the test was the most demanding, a combination of moving targets, varied distances, and rapid-fire engagement. Emily positioned herself at the first point, her mind calculating trajectories, timing, and adjustments. Her breathing synchronized with her movements, her muscles responsive and precise. Each shot struck with pinpoint accuracy, adapting seamlessly to the new challenges. The commander's gaze was sharp, analyzing every adjustment, every breath, and every micro-movement. He noted how she integrated instinct with calculation, precision with adaptability. "She's not just skilled," he muttered to himself. "She's exceptional." This is rare, even among elite operators. Around her, the soldiers' whispers grew louder, though still subdued. "Did you see that?" one asked quietly. "She didn't miss a single target." Another nodded, eyes wide. I can't believe it. That's flawless." Emily's movements were deliberate yet fluid, her skill a symphony of precision and adaptability. Each shot reinforced her mastery, her control under observation, and her ability to excel under pressure. A tattoo on her forearm, now fully visible, became more than a symbol. It was a testament to the experience and resilience that had made this performance possible. As the final shot struck its target, Emily lowered her rifle and exhaled, a subtle smile forming. The SEAL commander stepped closer, his expression a mix of admiration and respect. "Emily Parker," he said, his voice steady, "you've demonstrated not only skill, but exceptional composure, adaptability, and instinct. Your performance today confirms that the training represented by your insignia is real, and that you've mastered it beyond expectation." The soldiers around them were silent, still processing the display they had just witnessed. Laughter, mockery, and doubt had vanished entirely. Emily had commanded respect through action alone. Her skill, Discipline and mastery were undeniable, and her tattoo told a story that few could fully comprehend, but all could respect. Emily inclined her head slightly, acknowledging the commander's words with quiet grace. She did not seek praise, but she understood the weight of recognition from someone of his experience. The test of skill was complete, and the respect of those around her had been earned not through talk, but through flawless execution and quiet mastery. As the session came to a close, the commander addressed the observing soldiers. "Take note," he said, his tone firm. "This is what discipline, training, and focus look like. Respect is earned, not assumed. Emily Parker has earned it today." Emily gathered her equipment with practiced efficiency, her movements calm and deliberate. The soldiers, still processing the events, quietly stepped back, giving her space. The range, once filled with chatter and skepticism, now resonated with a newfound sense of respect and acknowledgement. Emily had not only proven her skill, but had shifted perceptions entirely. The SEAL commander, observing one final time, gave a slight nod of approval. Emily Parker had demonstrated mastery under pressure, precision beyond expectation, and composure that few could match. Her tattoo was not merely a mark. It was the proof of experience, resilience, and elite training, and she had demonstrated that it was more than justified. For Emily, the satisfaction was quiet and internal. She had performed flawlessly, earned respect, and validated years of training. The range, the commander, and the soldiers who had doubted her were witnesses to her mastery, and she had commanded it with grace, precision, and quiet authority. The test of skill was complete, but the story of her exceptional ability was only beginning. The range had grown quiet, the morning sun now casting long shadows across the gravel and targets. Emily Parker lowered her rifle, her movements precise and unhurried, yet every motion radiated confidence and skill. Around her, the soldiers who had once doubted her still stood in awe, their expressions caught somewhere between disbelief and admiration. They had witnessed her precision, her flawless execution, and her ability to adapt under pressure. Now, with her tattoo revealed, and her skill fully demonstrated, there was an unspoken question hanging in the air. Who was she, really? The SEAL commander, standing a few feet away, studied her intently. His eyes were sharp, calculating, and filled with recognition. Emily's performance had already impressed him beyond measure, but the insignia on her forearm revealed a depth he could not ignore. This was not someone who had simply trained hard. This was someone who had survived elite challenges, endured conditions that would break most, and emerged with mastery intact. The tattoo was proof of history, experience, and resilience, a silent testament to everything she had overcome. "Emily Parker," he began, his voice steady yet commanding. "Today, you've demonstrated skill, composure, and instinct far beyond what most can achieve. But now, I want the story behind the insignia. Not just the skill you've shown on the range, but the training, the trials, and the experiences that forged it." Emily paused, lowering her rifle slightly, and took a slow breath. She had shared fragments before, but now, under the weight of the commander's gaze and the quiet attention of the observing soldiers, she felt it was time to reveal the full measure of her past. Her voice was calm, measured, carrying the weight of experience. "The insignia," she began, rolling her sleeve back fully, "represents years of rigorous elite training. It is earned through endurance tests, physical and mental trials, and missions designed to push the limits of human capability. Only a fraction of those who attempt it succeed." The commander's eyes narrowed, the recognition deepening. He had overseen similar training, had seen soldiers break under pressure, had witnessed failure when even the best preparation seemed sufficient. To see Emily stand before him, not only having survived but thriving, was remarkable. Around them, The soldiers shifted uneasily, sensing the gravity of her words. They were beginning to realize that her skill on the range was only the surface of something far more extraordinary. Emily continued, her voice unwavering. A program is designed to strip away fear, doubt, and hesitation. It tests endurance, mental fortitude, and precision under conditions most would consider impossible. The insignia is not just a mark of accomplishment. It's proof that the individual has endured, survived, and mastered challenges that define elite operatives. A few of the soldiers whispered among themselves, their voices tinged with disbelief. She survived that? One muttered quietly. Another nodded slowly, eyes wide. No wonder she's this good. The commander stepped closer, studying her posture, her expression, and the confidence that radiated from every controlled movement. I've seen soldiers fail who had far more years of experience than you. The precision, the composure, the instinct, you've demonstrated it all flawlessly today. And the insignia confirms what I suspected. You are rare, perhaps one in 1,000 who could accomplish this level of mastery. Emily inclined her head slightly, acknowledging the compliment with quiet grace. She did not seek praise. Her satisfaction came from execution, skill, and the silent acknowledgement that her training had been validated. Yet, there was a subtle thrill in knowing that someone of the commander's experience fully comprehended the significance of her tattoo and her abilities. The soldiers watching now leaned forward, captivated by the revelation. They had come, expecting an ordinary range session, a routine demonstration. Instead, they were witnessing history in the making, an operative whose skill, discipline, and experience shattered expectations. Laughter, doubt, and skepticism had been replaced entirely by admiration and respect. The commander motioned toward a more challenging section of the range where moving targets and complex obstacles awaited. Emily, he said, let's put that mastery to the ultimate test. Not just precision, but adaptability, endurance, and leadership under observation. I want to see how you handle real-world scenarios. Emily nodded, her eyes bright with quiet determination. Understood, sir, she replied. Her mind raced. Through calculations, trajectories, wind, distances, and angles. Her body responded with instinctive precision, the result of years of conditioning and elite training. She was ready. The new challenge began. Targets moved unpredictably, some partially obscured, others at varying distances. Obstacles demanded rapid movement, careful positioning, and strategic execution. Emily's movements were fluid, graceful, and precise. Each shot struck its mark, each adjustment flawless. Her breathing remained controlled, her posture perfect, her timing impeccable. Around her, the soldiers were mesmerized. They had never witnessed such seamless integration of precision, adaptability, and instinct. Some whispered in awe, others simply stared, unsure how to process the display. The commander watched intently, analyzing every micro-movement, noting the extraordinary control and skill she exhibited under increasingly complex conditions. Emily's tattoo, fully visible on her forearm, seemed to symbolize more than her past. It was a beacon of capability, endurance, and resilience. It carried a story, now unfolding through action, skill, and unflinching mastery. Each shot she fired reinforced her history, her training, and the reason she had earned the insignia. The range had become a stage for a performance far beyond ordinary expectations. As the final moving targets were engaged, Emily lowered her rifle, her breathing steady, her expression calm. The commander stepped forward, a subtle smile forming. Emily Parker, he said, voice filled with respect. You have not only demonstrated mastery, but also revealed the depth of your experience and resilience. Today, you've earned the respect of every person on this range, not just through skill, but through history, training, and the embodiment of elite discipline. The soldiers around her remained silent, some still in awe, others quietly acknowledging her capability with subtle nods. The transformation from skepticism to admiration was complete. Emily had not only performed flawlessly, but had revealed the story behind her skill, earning recognition that few could achieve in a lifetime. Emily inclined her head slightly in acknowledgement, her satisfaction quiet and internal. A validation came not from applause or praise, but from the recognition of her history, her mastery, and the unspoken understanding that she was exceptional. She had faced challenges, endured trials, and emerged with skill and composure beyond expectation. Today, the world, or at least the range, and those present had witnessed it. The commander looked around at the observing soldiers, his tone firm. Take note. What you've seen here is not luck, not talent alone. It's discipline, preparation, and resilience forged through elite training. Respect is earned, and Emily Parker has earned it today, and every day she has trained for this moment. Emily gathered her equipment with meticulous care, her movements calm and deliberate. Around her, the energy of the range had shifted completely. Doubt, skepticism, and laughter had been replaced by silent acknowledgement and admiration. She had revealed not only her skill, but her history, the story behind the tattoo, and the resilience that had made her performance possible. The commander approached her one final time, eyes steady and voice calm. Emily, your skill, focus, and experience are extraordinary. Few could achieve what you've demonstrated today. Your tattoo is not just a mark. It is proof of resilience, mastery, and elite capability. You've earned the respect of everyone here, and my recognition as well. Emily nodded slightly, allowing herself a brief, modest smile. Thank you, sir, she replied. Her satisfaction was quiet, a personal acknowledgement of the journey she had undertaken and the mastery she had achieved. She didn't need applause or accolades. Her skill and the recognition it commanded were validation enough. As the session ended, the soldiers who had once doubted her began to disperse, their expressions thoughtful, respectful, and in some cases, quietly inspired. Emily had transformed not only the range, but the perception of those around her. She had demonstrated skill, resilience, and discipline, revealed her elite history, and earned the respect of both peers and commander alike. In that moment, Emily Parker's quiet mastery and the story behind her tattoo were fully recognized. She had proven that skill, discipline, and resilience were inseparable, and that true mastery required both history and execution. The range, once a place of skepticism and doubt, had become a testament to her extraordinary capability, a silent acknowledgement of a soldier who had endured, persevered, and emerged exceptional. The morning had given way to a warm, golden afternoon, the sun casting a soft light over the firing range. Emily Parker stood quietly, the rifle now slung across her shoulder, her forearm bearing the insignia of her elite past, fully revealed for all to see. Around her, the soldiers who had doubted her earlier had dispersed, yet many lingered at the edges, still watching, still processing what they had witnessed. For some, the transformation from skepticism to admiration was still sinking in. Emily, ever composed, observed with calm detachment, aware of their attention yet focused primarily on the integrity of her own execution. The SEAL commander remained by her side, his gaze sharp but reflective. He had spent his career observing, training, and evaluating elite soldiers, yet Emily had challenged every expectation he had ever held. From the very first shot on the range to the intricate display of skill and composure under pressure, she had demonstrated mastery that few could claim. And now, with her full history laid bare, the commander understood the rare depth of her capabilities. Emily, he began, his tone deliberate and weighty, Today has been more than a test of skill. It has been a demonstration of discipline, endurance, and character. You've shown precision, adaptability, and composure under pressure qualities that few can even imagine possessing. But more than that, you've revealed the history and resilience behind that insignia, proving that your mastery is not accidental. It is forged through experience, training, and perseverance. Emily inclined her head slightly, acknowledging his words with quiet grace. She did not need affirmation. Her performance had already spoken volumes, but there was a sense of satisfaction in having the commander recognize the depth of her journey. For him, the insignia was no longer a symbol on her arm. It was a living testament to her skill, her endurance, and the countless challenges she had overcome. Around the range, the soldiers who had once whispered, doubted, or even laughed now observed with a mix of awe and silent respect. Their perception of Emily had transformed entirely. She was no longer merely a competent marksman or a skilled trainee. She was a model of what disciplined training, resilience, and determination could achieve. Every movement she had made, every shot she had fired, and every challenge she had overcome now served as an example for them. The commander's voice cut through the quiet. Let everyone here understand what it means to earn respect. He sighed, his tone firm but reflective. Not through talk, not through appearances, but through mastery, composure, and discipline. Emily Parker has demonstrated that in the highest possible measure. Observe, learn, and remember that skill is earned, and excellence is forged through endurance and focus. Emily felt a subtle shift in the energy around her. Where there had been doubt and mild derision, there was now attention, curiosity, and admiration. Soldiers who had mocked or underestimated her now saw someone who had mastered the demands of the elite, someone whose discipline and composure were unmatched. They began to process what they had witnessed, the seamless integration of precision, adaptability, and instinct under the most challenging conditions. The commander stepped forward slightly, addressing Emily directly. I've spent years evaluating talent. I've trained, observed, and commanded soldiers of all ranks and abilities. Rarely have I seen someone who combines skill, focus, resilience, and history as you do. The insignia is more than earned. It represents the journey and your execution. Today confirms mastery beyond question. Emily's expression remained calm, almost serene, yet inside, she felt the quiet satisfaction of validation. Her focus had always been on execution and skill rather than recognition, yet she understood the significance of this acknowledgement. It was not about praise for its own sake. It was the confirmation that her years of preparation, sacrifice, and training were recognized by someone who truly understood their value. She adjusted her stance slightly, aware that the commander's observation carried weight, not just for her, but for those around them. The soldiers who had observed her now quietly stepped back, giving space and displaying subtle gestures of respect. They had been witnesses to something exceptional, something beyond ordinary comprehension. Emily's presence had shifted the entire dynamic of the range, transforming it from skepticism to admiration, from casual routine to a living demonstration of elite skill and resilience. The commander's gaze swept over the range, his eyes taking in the expressions of the observing soldiers. Let this be a lesson, he said, voice firm and resonant, that skill is not measured by assumptions, appearances, or bias. Respect is earned through action, discipline, and perseverance. Today, Emily Parker has earned it unequivocally. Emily allowed herself a small, modest smile. She didn't seek validation, yet she recognized the significance of the moment. Her journey, marked by challenges, discipline, and relentless pursuit of mastery, had reached a point where it could no longer be ignored or doubted. The tattoo on her forearm symbolized not only her past achievements, but also her ongoing capability, a reminder that resilience and preparation are inseparable from true mastery. The commander approached her, standing beside her shoulder, and spoke with quiet authority. "Emily, your presence here has shifted perceptions, challenged assumptions, and demonstrated what it truly means to excel. Few soldiers can combine skill, composure, and history in the way you have today. The respect you have earned is not fleeting. It is rooted in demonstration, discipline, and undeniable ability." Around them, the soldiers absorbed his words, many silently nodding. They had been witnesses to more than just exceptional marksmanship. They had seen a model of resilience, discipline, and mastery that few would ever forget. Emily Parker's presence on the range had become a lesson in excellence, and her story, marked by the tattoo and the history behind it, would linger in their minds long after the day had ended. As the session concluded, Emily carefully gathered her equipment. Each movement remained deliberate, precise, and graceful, a reflection of the discipline that had brought her to this point. The SEAL commander observed quietly, a subtle nod of acknowledgement confirming that her mastery had been fully recognized. Around the range, a new atmosphere had settled, a mixture of respect, admiration, and quiet inspiration. For Emily, the conclusion of the day was less about accolades and more about integrity. She had performed flawlessly, demonstrated her history, and earned recognition through skill rather than words. The soldiers around her had been transformed. Their perception of her shifted completely, and the commander's acknowledgement provided the rare affirmation of someone who understood the significance of her training, her tattoo, and her mastery. The sun continued its descent, casting long, warm shadows over the range. Emily Parker's figure stood tall and composed, embodying discipline, skill, and resilience. Her journey had been long and challenging, marked by intense training, elite trials, and the pursuit of perfection. Yet, in this moment, she was not defined solely by the past, but by the execution of mastery in the present, a living demonstration of what it meant to earn respect, skill, and recognition. The commander finally spoke, turning slightly to address the soldiers remaining at the range. "Remember this day," he said firmly, "not because of one individual's skill alone, but because of what discipline, focus, and endurance can achieve. Emily Parker has set a standard. Learn from it, respect it, and let it inspire you to reach your own potential." Emily's presence lingered as the soldiers dispersed, many still quietly discussing her skill and composure. Her tattoo, once a subtle mark on her arm, now symbolized the journey, mastery, and recognition that had defined her path. She had demonstrated that skill is inseparable from discipline, that respect is earned through action, and that mastery is the product of endurance, training, and focus. As the final moments of the day unfolded, Emily Parker stood quietly on the range, rifle at her side, her eyes reflecting calm determination and quiet confidence. The story of the morning, the disbelief, the precision, the revelation of her tattoo, and the commander's acknowledgement had concluded, leaving behind an atmosphere of respect, inspiration, and lasting recognition. In the end, Emily Parker had achieved what few could. She had earned the respect of her peers, the acknowledgement of a SEAL commander, and the quiet satisfaction of mastery. Her journey, marked by resilience, training, and experience, had culminated in a living demonstration of excellence. And as the sun dipped lower, casting a golden glow across the range, Emily knew that her story, her skill, her discipline, and the history behind her tattoo would leave a lasting impression on everyone who had witnessed it. In the silence that followed, there was no doubt. Emily Parker had proven that true mastery is earned, respect is commanded through action, and excellence is defined by resilience, focus, and skill. She walked away from the range with the quiet authority of someone who had faced doubt, challenge, and expectation, and had emerged unmistakably as exceptional.